The big beautiful bill. What does it mean for you and your economy? Trump's big beautiful bill passed this past Friday on the 4th of July. He signed it, and it is the most regressive and biggest bill ever to come through Congress. And of course, we could thank the Republicans and MAGA for that. So we all know that most of MAGA doesn't even understand what's in the bill. I'm talking about like everyday idiots who voted for Trump and think that, he's going to get rid of all the criminals and brown people from the country, which he is doing, but he's also getting rid of legal immigrants, and now they're going after nationalized citizens. So people who did it all the legal way, the right way, they took the tests, the nationalization test, the citizenship test, which most MAGA could not pass. I can almost guarantee that. I mean, MAGA are some of the stupidest people in the world, and thanks to them, this is what we got. So, the big beautiful bill, what does it do? Well, one thing it does is it gives tax cuts to the rich. It gives tax cuts to everybody, to be fair, but to the rich, it gives much greater tax cuts. Rich people and corporations, of course, which Trump is. I mean, I don't understand why people keep voting for him. He's basically an oligarch. He's one of them. He's not going to help you, no matter how many lies he tells you that he cares about you. He loves his undereducated. He loves the uneducated, and they love him. So they just keep voting for him. This bill is going to be a disaster. But the Republicans were kind of clever how most of the worst provisions come in after the 2026 midterms. So they're trying to shield themselves from the political fallout. But some of the provisions of the bill and Trump's policies are already coming to fruition in a negative way. You all heard about the floods in Texas this weekend, Friday morning early. 26-foot wall of water came down the Guadalupe River, killed like 70 people, and the NOAA, who predicts the weather for the country, has been deeply, deeply cut. 500 or more staffers are gone, and common wisdom says our weather forecasts are going to be less accurate if we invest less money in NOAA. And with climate change happening, I know MAGA denies climate change. They deny a lot of things that are right in front of their face. But with climate change happening, we need NOAA more than ever. And the thing about this flood is Mother Nature doesn't discriminate like the Trump administration does. All these young girls who died at this camp on the Guadalupe River were well-off white Christian girls. Trump's base. So we'll see what comes from that. I never count on people turning on Trump. A cult is a cult. They're brainwashed. We'll see what happens. But anyway, let's look into the provisions of this bill and some of the details just to see what we are really getting and losing out of this bill. So I came across this YouTuber. Andre is his name, and he's a financial YouTuber, but he breaks down the bill pretty good. So let's watch a little of his video and see what he has to say about it.
Now, this is one of the most important pieces of legislation of Mr. Trump's entire presidency, and it just passed both the House and the Senate, and today, July 4th, it's going to be signed by the president. And this new law will have major changes to things like taxes, healthcare, student loans, energy, retirement accounts like the Roth IRA, and the entire economy.
$200 is, going to the doctor, maybe a visit if you're lucky.
For inflation each year by about 2 to 3% or so. It's not as much as the House originally wanted, which was $2,500, but it's still an increase. But there's also one catch. Not every family qualifies for the full amount. If you're a low-income family, the credit doesn't just show up. You have to earn above a certain threshold to get it.
And this is called means testing, and this is what you call a regressive bill, because if you make more money, you get a bigger child tax credit. Does that make sense? No. But does anything this administration does make sense? No. Of course, it hurts poor people, helps wealthier people, just like almost everything in this bill, really.
It's estimated that about 17 million kids won't see the full benefit because those families don't make enough. Now let's move on to healthcare, because this is one of the most controversial parts of the entire bill. The Big Beautiful Bill cuts about $800 billion from Medicaid over the next 10 years. Now, to be clear, that doesn't mean the program is going away, but it does.
Did you know that most Medicaid goes to children and seniors? We have such a horrible healthcare system, especially for seniors in this country. If you get to the point where you need, around the clock care, you need to go into an assisted living facility. My mother was in one of these, or a full care facility. My mother died in 2021. She was in a full care facility for the last 6 months, assisted living for maybe a year before that. And it cost us anywhere. She got moved. We moved her once or twice out of necessity, but it cost $5,000 to $10,000 a month. And because she bought a house in 1967 and on Long Island, New York, and that house appreciated to close to $400,000. That 400 because of that $400,000, she didn't have any money. She lived off Social Security, paycheck to paycheck. But because she worked her whole life with 5 kids, and I had a deadbeat dad who left when I was 2, she gets punished. She can't get Medicaid because she owns this house. So we had to sell the house. And we were a poor family. They say, you buy your house is your wealth for generations, but unless you need medical care, then we had to sell the house, and the majority of that money went to the $10,000 a month we needed to keep her living. Now we gladly gave up our inheritance to keep our mother under good care while she was, aging, or the last years of her life. But that doesn't negate the fact that the system is set up to withdraw money from the middle class and the poor and give it to the rich. Trump just exasperated that tenfold with this new bill, and the Republicans, of course. Mike Johnson, they're all responsible, and I hope Americans wake up and make them pay in the 26 midterms or the 28 election, but I doubt we will. We love to be uneducated in this country. Social media has taken over as our news source, so people believe whatever their idiot friends say on Facebook, and I know because I have plenty of idiot friends who believe everything they read on Facebook.
Mean that the rules are going to get stricter. For example, if you have no children, you'll need to work at least 80 hours a month just to stay enrolled. And you'll also have to prove your income and residency twice a year. The bill also changes something called SNAP, which is the Food Assistance Program that used to be called food stamps. Now, if you've never used it, you might not think it matters. But SNAP helps feed over 40 million Americans, so any changes here will affect the economy in a big way. And under this new bill, the benefits will now adjust more slowly for inflation. Just like Medicaid, there's now going to be a work requirement. If you're an adult between 18 and 55 and you have no children, you'll need to work at least 80 hours a month to qualify. Now, critics argue that this could kick millions of people off the program, but supporters say it's about encouraging people to find work and be less reliant on the system for support. Now let's talk about energy. If you've noticed your utility bill going up lately, you're probably not alone. And this bill is going to have a lot to do with it, because the bill shifts a lot of money away from the green energy programs and puts it into oil, gas, and nuclear power. Now, supporters say that in the longer term, this will lower our energy prices because it will boost U.S. production and cut back on government subsidies. But it also means less tax credits for things like solar panels and energy-efficient upgrades.
So no matter what Trump and the conservatives do, solar and wind energy and ocean current energy is the future of energy. Now, Trump and his cronies are just trying to roll back solar energy for their powerful friends in the oil and gas extraction industry. But this will pass, and the natural progression of a capitalist society is going to lead us to solar energy and wind energy. There's a finite amount of fossil fuels on the planet, and whether you believe it or not, I'm a geologist, so I'm a scientist and I've studied this extensively. The climate is changing. Whether it happened before in history, I know that's a big argument, doesn't matter. It is a fact, not an opinion, that climate change is driven by man made fossil fuel extraction and burning of fossil fuels. And that's it. And if we don't start mitigating that in a much more responsible and aggressive way, we're going to get more floods like in Texas this week. We're going to get more hurricanes like in North Carolina last fall. And there's nothing we could do about it then, but we can do something about it now. And this bill goes in the wrong direction. Of course, what else do you expect from conservatives? They're, a bunch of idiots. They live in their bubble, their little Christian bubble, and if it goes against their personal beliefs, they just deny it, like climate change. Even though all the facts are there, all the science is there, again, they deny science too. So, I mean, why do we have these people running the country? You tell me, those of you that voted for him. Go ahead and comment in the bottom. Tell me why you voted for Trump and if you think this is a good bill.
Which could make those things more expensive. The bill also gives the state the option to charge us extra fees on utility bills if our electricity use goes above a certain monthly limit. It's kind of a stealth tax for people who like to run the AC a lot. That if you make too much money to contribute to a Roth IRA, if someone makes over $1 million a year, this bill will give them an average 3% boost in after-tax income, which works out to about $75,000 in savings per year, according to the Tax Policy Center. And there's a few ways that's going to happen. The SALT deduction cap, which goes up, the limit is on screen, and there's also some changes to itemized charitable deductions, with wealthier households seeing slightly reduced benefits, while middle-income earners can now claim up to $2,000 in charitable deductions without itemizing at all. Now, there's a lot more to this bill that I left out. There's hundreds and hundreds of pages to this, but I think the bigger question is, how are we going to actually pay for this? This bill is extremely expensive. According to the Congressional Budget Office, the Big Beautiful Bill is projected.
So yeah, that's the main problem with this bill. It adds 3 to 4 trillion to the deficit, and that's my least worry. I believe in modern monetary policy, and if you don't know what that is, look it up. So modern monetary policy doesn't really worry about deficits, and in the U.S. we haven't worried about debt. We've been in debt since the 1800s, so all this fear mongering about the debt is somewhat irrational, but it can be somewhat rational. We'll have to see in the future how that pans out. So the debt going up is not my biggest worry, but the conservatives in Congress that care about the debt voted for this bill anyway because they're scared of Trump. So instead of voting on their principles, they vote on fear of losing their cushy $200,000 a year job with benefits and health care for life, of course. And, Congress is bought with legal bribes. It's called lobbying. And that's how a lot of this bill got done as well. But most of it is just people scared of getting primaried by Trump and losing their cush job. So they voted for it, they clenched their teeth, voted for it, even though, their whole lives they've been saying they're against debt spending, which this is. You spend money and you go into debt spending it. Let's take a look at another video and see just exactly how much inequality this new bill creates.
Income inequality, how will that be impacted?
Yeah, so let's talk about two ways in which many Americans are going to be affected. The first one is Medicaid. We've talked a lot about Medicaid. The Senate version actually increased the amount of Medicaid cuts from $760 billion to $841 billion. The consequences is that something around 11 million people are projected to lose their Medicaid over the coming decade. And so after Obamacare was passed, the Affordable Care Act, we did a really great job of reducing the uninsured population in this country, and this is going to send it halfway back to where we were.
I'm old enough to remember before the Affordable Care Act when half the country didn't have health care, me included, and it was just a nightmare. You worried about getting sick, going to the hospital because you go thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in debt just because our country doesn't value its citizens enough to provide health care for everybody, like every civilized country, every wealthy country in the world, we're the only one that doesn't guarantee health care as a right.
I do not know of an example in history where we have instituted a major social benefit like Obamacare, ACA, whatever you want to call it, Medicaid, and then rolled it back so much. This is unprecedented in our history. We've always moved forward, not backwards. Now, if you remember one thing from what I'm saying today, remember what's on this chart, because we've talked a lot about how it helps the rich, hurts the poor. Let's just put some numbers around that. If you're in the top 20% of the country, you're going to get an average $6,000 benefit. These green arrows are what you get from tax cuts. The red arrows, what you lose from some of the spending cuts. But these people at the very top are going to get a 2.3% increase in their after-tax income and benefits and what they get from the government, essentially. If you go down here to the bottom 20%, what do you see? These people are actually going to be worse off. They get a very small tax cut, but it is completely, wildly offset. But what they lose from Medicaid cuts, from food stamp cuts, from other cuts, and so they end up actually $560 worse off, minus 2.3%. And again, I would say in 50 years of watching economic policy, I have never seen a package that was so regressive, that did so much to take money from the poor, give it to the rich, and take it away from the poor. This is unprecedented in our history. It is the most amazing piece of social legislation in the wrong direction that we have ever seen.
Okay, guys, thanks for watching the Spin Cycle. Let's call this the reverse Robin Hood bill, because it takes money from the poor and gives it to the rich. Like Trump, he's been taking money from the poor and giving it to himself for his whole life. Now he's doing it for the whole country. So go ahead and comment if you voted for Trump and you're losing your Medicaid. If you voted for Trump and you're paying more for everything, groceries, eggs, whatever, go ahead and comment. I want to hear from you. If you like this video, watch this one here. And I'll see you next time on the Spin Cycle. Peace.